Good morning. Welcome back to the 1.2 podcast. I'm Isaiah here with Jack, and today we are talking about extensions, specifically for quarterbacks in the NFL. Um, we just had Trevor Lawrence sign a new deal, average annual value $55 million a year. We're still waiting for our guy, Jordan Love, to sign his extension, which we all think is coming soon. Jack, you predicted 58.5 million. In fact, you said you would be disappointed in Jordan Love if he signed for less than $58.2 million. Why the disappointment, Jack?
Look, I think 55 million is the floor at this point. And, if it's 55.1, good for you, Jordan. I just look at the upside for him compared to what we're seeing these deals come back at.
Okay, but let's look at accomplishments. Now, I think our most recent comparison, obviously, Trevor Lawrence has not gone to the Super Bowl, but he has a larger body of work, and he's shown stability at the position for the most part. Obviously, you probably want to see more from him if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. But then we look at the other guys in the top, and we've got a couple of different things that we could measure it by, right? There's the annual value, and then there's the total value. But whether we're looking, depending on what we're looking at, we've got Joe Burrow at the highest, along with Trevor Lawrence. We've got Jared Goff, we've got Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. If you also look at the total contract value, then we have Patrick Mahomes way out in front of everybody else. And then again, we have Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, and then Lamar Jackson. So I don't think anyone's going to argue that Patrick Mahomes shouldn't be there at the highest total contract value. I am a bit surprised to see specifically Justin Herbert, right? I mean, he hasn't led his team to a Super Bowl yet. But all these other guys, Jared Goff, he's led his team to a Super Bowl before. Lamar Jackson, MVP seasons. So how does Love crack that top tier when he hasn't maybe done as much as some of these guys who he's still, being compared to?
Because his contract is up next.
So that's and I guess that's where we're at in today's world, right? It's who's up next. It's not truly what your value is, but who's next.
Yeah, I mean, look at the names from that list. When did their contracts get done? I think if you're talking about this year, it's Goff and.
So if you're
sorry, I think I went a little frozen there, but
no, that's all right.
I think you just look at this year, who the contracts were, and then you look at last year. I mean, I think last year is when we had the Herbert Burrow contracts.
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts signed as well.
And the salary cap has gone up. Revenue has gone up. It makes sense that we're going to be paying people more. And I think that's entirely separate from whether they deserve it. But sure. I do think Jordan Love deserves it too. But like a week ago.
There's the fan in you coming out. So if you're an agent, why would you ever, or a player, why would you ever sign a deal until the last possible moment?
Well, there's a lot of factors, and I think each person's different. There some things we've talked about before. If you look at total guaranteed money, which I think we could get into another podcast topic about how a contract can't be guaranteed.
Yeah.
Contract's a contract, but whatever. There are other considerations, that long-term stability. Maybe you're someone like Kirk Cousins, who's fine betting on himself, riding out the franchise tag, and then cashes in how many different times on pretty lucrative contracts.
Right.
So there's lots of considerations, and I mean, a lot of the bargaining power goes down to, are you worth that kind of money? I don't think, Baker Mayfield, for example, could sit here and say, you know what, my contract's due next. I'm going to be the highest paid quarterback. That's not realistic.
Sure. You've got people who are ascending. You have people who are descending. But all the talk I hear is that Dak Prescott is going to break the market when he signs his. I know that most people would take Dak Prescott over Baker Mayfield, but I mean, if you look at accomplishments, like actual accomplishments, Dak Prescott has probably done less with more tools, more weapons, more stability than Baker Mayfield, who's whether it's on him or not, but he's been thrown around with a bunch of different coaches, a bunch of different teams, things like that, and has done okay. So it's interesting to me that we're looking at Dak and saying, yeah, this guy, he's going to reset the market because that's just how it is. But then we look at someone like Baker and say, nah, he doesn't get to reset the market.
Yeah. And if you and I knew the answer to those questions, we probably would not be doing what we do. We'd probably be GMs for
right?
Football teams. But to me, it's the eye test. I don't really care as much about stats and accolades. Obviously, you have to win.
Right.
But you're looking at, in our case, Jordan Love, I believe, if he's next, will be the highest paid quarterback in the league. And he hasn't really won.
One, good playoff game that he had. And he had to win to get there. Every game leading up to that was essentially a playoff game this last season.
Yeah.
And
I think you watch him play, setting aside being a Packers fan, you can see something special.
You see moments of greatness. Yep.
And you're paying him based on that.
Right.
And I would be, if I'm starting an NFL franchise right now, I'm picking one quarterback over him.
I don't think many people are going to argue with Patrick Mahomes being the overall pick there. So, if you are Love, everyone said, well, they should just get this done. Was it May 3rd was when it was initially? Do you think then it's Love who's sitting there like let's wait. Everyone's kind of blaming the Packers, saying, hey, they're messing this up. They should have just gone to him at the very beginning. But what downside is there for Love to wait until the day before training camp?
I don't really think there's any downside for him.
Right.
Of course, something could happen. He could get hurt.
Dak got hurt and got paid.
But people still get paid.
Right.
And
that point.
From Love's perspective, and this goes into answering your question before about being disappointed if he took anything less, it's just look at what's happening.
Yeah.
Look at who's getting paid and how much they're getting paid. I mean, every time another quarterback gets paid, it increases what he's going to get paid.
So
So
let's.
what I think you had to wait for, Trevor Lawrence to me was a big one because
Right.
I would say of the quarterbacks up for extensions, he's probably the one that's as least accomplished in the
Right.
NFL as Jordan Love. If you're looking at purely winning, I mean, they both have one playoff win.
Right.
I would certainly suggest he's less accomplished than Jordan Love based on the number of years
Right.
and the opportunity he's had. But
Do you know how
if
many
we're just looking
playoff?
at,
You know how many playoff wins Dak Prescott has? He's got two.
does he? I was gonna
He's got
say I
two.
know one, but
Yep.
two. Yeah, I mean, and
So
I fully agree with that. But we're talking about Dak Prescott. He's going to make $60 million a year, and nobody really bats an eye at it other than maybe the Cowboys.
do you think? Okay. Do you think that Dak Prescott is an ascending quarterback or a descending quarterback?
No, he's done.
He has hit his ceiling.
Yeah, I don't think he's done being a good quarterback in this league. But
Right. Right.
if you're looking as far as, and we always go back to, if we're drafting a franchise right now,
Right.
I don't know if he's sniffing top 20 for
Right.
anyone.
Right. So if
Just
you're Jordan Love, then
he's old. He's what? How old is he? He's 31. Is he 31?
Let's just see. Let's just see how old Dak is. He's 30, but no, he'll turn 31 in July, end of July. So
That's not young.
that's not young. That's not young. That's true. Jordan Love is how old?
27.
He's 25. He's 25.
25.
He'll turn 26
See,
in November.
and that's, I'm pretty sure Sean Clifford might be older
he's
than
back up.
Jordan Love.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So then why even sign a deal this year? Why not wait?
If you're Jordan,
Yeah.
because what's he making this year?
It was like 12 or something.
Yeah, that's why.
There's an IQ test that you can give to small children, and you tell them you can have a cookie now, or if you wait 3 minutes, just sit here at the table 3 minutes. Depending on the age, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you can have two cookies, right? And you put them right in front of them too, so they see it, and then you see how they respond. Do they have the ability to sit there and look at the cookie for a minute or 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or do they because something could happen to those cookies, right, in the next minute, 2 minutes, or maybe their mom will say, oh, we have to go, and they don't get any cookie, right? Do you think Jordan should be looking at the two cookies? Yeah, you only get one. You only get 11 million this year, but you wait till next year. Oh boy, you're looking 60, 65.
I think he's already had his cookies for a while that he's been looking at. And
he's sat long enough.
yeah, right. And we talked about still getting paid even if you get hurt. I don't know if you're getting number one top of the market paid.
Sure.
And so, I'm sure too, he's probably getting a little bit of pressure from his agents who at a certain point are going to love saying that they negotiated the highest paid salary in NFL history,
right,
per year.
Right.
So, I think if you look at the risk in not signing now, It's far greater than playing on 11, 12, whatever million he's getting,
Sure.
and then trying to get 65 next year.
Right. So then, would you agree that his risk optimization would be waiting until just before training camp, when everyone else possible has signed, and then you sign?
Yeah, I think the one risky part too is the Dak Prescott deal if that gets done, which I don't think it's going to at this point. But
Mm-hmm.
I I don't think if Dak comes in and gets 60 million, I don't think Jordan Love's getting 61.
But would he still get 58?
Right. So maybe it doesn't matter in the long run, but I think as far as has he leveraged everything that he possibly can at this point, I think the answer is yes.
Sure.
I don't think it matters. Like, oh, we got to wait for Dak to get done.
Well, I think
I don't
it
think that's going to
depends.
have a huge
I mean,
impact on him.
I think if Dak comes in at 67 or 60 65, right?
Yeah, but
I
that's
think
not
then you're
happening.
well. We would not expect that to happen, but we also wouldn't expect Trevor Lawrence to come in at 55 million a year.
But he's the greatest QB prospect ever.
I sense some sarcasm there, Jack.
Yeah.
All right, so football aside, it's fascinating to me that we talk about these extensions, we talk about these contracts um, like this, but these are the only people really in our country who get paid in this way, where it's they give you a dollar number, and then they say, but this isn't guaranteed, or this isn't what you're actually going to get. We're going to revisit this in 2 or 3 years, and that works both sides too. You've got the teams who can cut you after all the guaranteed money is out, or sometimes before they just pay you. But you also have players who sign a lucrative deal, but then 2 years later, even though it's a 4 year contract, they say, I'm playing above my contract level. You need to sign me. If anyone else in a typical job, went to their employer and said, "Hey, I know we agreed on X, but now I want Y." Um, how would that go for most people?
Not well.
What gives a football player, an athlete, let's say an athlete in general, so much more leverage than the average person?
I really don't know. I think it's just a product of the system that's been set up. Um, I think when you're looking at, I hate to try and make it as simple as sacrificing, putting your body on the line, so to say, every
Mm-hmm.
day, because certainly there are people doing that
Right.
in
Right.
their line of work and they're not being treated this way. Um, but I do think that plays into it. You look at, and I hate to go all the way down this road, but you look at the life altering effects, the particularly and specifically the game of football can have
Sure.
on your body, your brain. I understand why someone doing that would say, look, I'm way overperforming this contract. Pay me more.
Sure. Sure.
And I think you look at the size of the collective pot as well. I don't know necessarily of other industries that grow as rapidly as the NFL does.
Right.
For example, it's not like school districts are getting a bunch more money all the time. And all of the teachers can say, well, now the school district is getting $50 million more a year.
Right.
We all want more of that.
Sure.
or that law firms collectively have so much more revenue.
Right. Right.
It's
So yeah,
most things kind of gradually grow with inflation and all of that stuff, but the NFL seems to be like a straight arrow up. So I think that factors into it, but I really don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
no, that's fair. That's fair. And I guess the closest we see to this in I'll just say an everyman industry is when you talked about the teachers or something like that, but you see a union, right? A union strike,
Mm-hmm.
and growing up in West Virginia, I'm very familiar with unions and how that can go. And here in Wisconsin, I know in the past before I got here, there was quite a bit of union. Um, controversy, if you want to call it controversy, but there was a back and forth between the unions, and so um, I think it's interesting to me when someone agrees to a certain thing, and then after some time says, "What I agreed to is no longer enough. What I agreed to work for, I'm now saying that I want something different." And instead of trying to increase your worth by getting better or finding a different job, so to speak, moving around. We have so much mobility right now in the country and things like that. Instead of doing that, you try to force your way where you are. So it's interesting to me that some of these players, instead of saying, you know what, I'm overperforming, I'm not going to sign, a new contract and an extension. I'm going to hit the free market. I'm going to play this out. I'm going to hit the free market, and then I'm going to make, a lot of money. Versus trying to force your way out or not, not showing up to camp, things like that. Similarly, I think it's interesting when you have a union or someone who's, a teacher, for example, who says, instead of working for what I agreed to work for, or instead of leaving and finding a different job that pays more, or instead of moving to another community that has a higher paying school district, I'm going to demand more here. Um, and obviously, with unions, you've got different leverages, and you have a group behind you, so there's you know different dynamics there too. But it is interesting to me when someone says, what I agreed to is no longer sufficient.
I think 2 points on that. I think one, isn't the threat of exploring the open market part of what incentivizes these teams to revisit that as well? I mean, they
Yep.
know that this person will make more on the open market. That's just a reality of the
Sure.
market being open. So I think they can realize and appreciate, look, yeah, we know you could go there, so we'll give you what you want. And it's not always what they want, but at least more than they're
Sure.
currently getting. And I think, too, to the point we started talking about before, the fact that I can sit there as an NFL team and not pay you what I told you I was going to pay you because whatever guarantees weren't met or performance bond, and those are different.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the fact that our contract isn't really a contract
Right.
in the first place,
Right.
that if that's coming from both sides, to me that's why a player could say, I'm really overperforming and
Right.
I need to be paid. And the other even more complicating factor too is you look at these rookie contracts, and those are
Sure.
all just like government contracts.
Yeah.
You're
Yep.
this slot, this
Right.
much, boom,
Right.
this whatever. And so you can very clearly overperform or outperform those contracts right
Sure.
away.
That's
And
true.
that's why there's protections in place on how soon you can renegotiate them and all that kind of stuff. But when we're starting like that, we're starting you off as an employer undervaluing you, and maybe they're not, but
Right.
the fact that there's no flexibility, and I totally get why there is. I think we need to have something in place like we have, but if there's a difference some years between who's going number one overall and who's going number one overall the next year, and
Sure.
not being able to differentiate right away
Yep.
leads to some of those inequities.
Right. So over the course of his career, especially near the end, Aaron Rodgers was criticized for taking too much, of the salary cap for the Packers, taking up too much. And the argument was always they can't surround him with enough weapons because he's getting too much of the pie. Even though he liked to complain that he didn't have, they don't take the guys I need them to take in the draft and things like that. The counter argument was always, we can't pay him. We have to take a lineman because we can't go out in free agency and get a lineman.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing. Is that a risk for Jordan Love?
Yeah. I think the criticism, though, where it might be different, is Jordan Love isn't out there saying they're not getting guys for me. I mean, that's
right.
From my perspective, that's where the criticism comes from. I'm not going to ever blame Aaron Rodgers for wanting to get his money.
Sure.
And he was probably worth more than he was getting paid. But at the same time, to be so publicly critical of not going out and getting weapons for him, be your own weapon. I mean, come on.
Fair enough.
Look at what Jordan Love did last year with rookie receivers.
Yep.
And that's part of their plan.
Yep. I think.
But to your point, those receivers are going to need to get paid.
Those receivers, they're going to need to get paid if they continue performing, and if they don't perform, then Green Bay's kind of stuck.
Mm-hmm.
If this was a fluky year where these guys didn't know what they didn't know and they just went out there and played ball, but now there's the pressure and they end up snapping, right? Or they can't duplicate what they did last year. Now you're stuck with a huge contract for Jordan Love and no one around him, and we're going to be playing the next 4 or 5 years saying, I wish they could go get someone good for him to throw to, and but we won't be able to afford it.
And this cuts against kind of my team building philosophy. So I understand that, but the notion that you can't win with a high paid quarterback is just not true. I've always been of, my team building philosophy was I look at those Seattle teams, get that Russell Wilson on a rookie contract, build up the defense, build up everything else, you can afford to pay those guys. And then That's how you win. Same thing with the Rams and Jared Goff. He was on his rookie deal. They were able to go out and get whoever they wanted. But if you look at who's actually winning Super Bowls, it's the stars that are getting paid.
Right. Yeah, and you can look, back through history, and some of the higher salary cap percentage for the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. The highest ever was Patrick Mahomes in 2022. He was taking up 17% of the team salary cap. The year before that, 2021, Matthew Stafford was taking up 11%. Before that, Tom Brady, 12%. 2019, Patrick Mahomes, still on a rookie deal, was only 2.4%.
Mm-hmm.
2018, Tom Brady again, 12%. So it seems like there's, I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes stands out as that outlier with 17% salary cap in 2022. That was right after he signed a big deal. But, I think if you look back, there is more of a sweet spot of, around 10%, if not less, than less than 10% for the Super Bowl winning quarterback. So I'm curious to know, and I haven't crunched the numbers. What's Love gonna be, and if that's gonna be, too high, maybe this year, but maybe not 4 years from now, right? And the cap's only gonna keep going up. So, like you said, maybe it's just a function of, what, no other industry, no other group has a pool available to it that's so lucrative. So, yeah, that first 2 years, maybe that seems high, but like you said, in 5 years, we're going to be sitting here looking at Jordan Love making 58 and a half, saying, oh, that's a bargain.
Mm-hmm. We will. 5 years from now, when the Packers will have just won their third Super Bowl in 5 years, we're talking about Jordan Love's new contract. Well, he probably will have been extended before that because he'll have 3 Super Bowl rings,
Right.
2 MVPs.
Right.
Those are regular season MVPs, not Super Bowl MVPs.
All right.
It's gonna be a steal. We're gonna look at it and say, "Wow, we were able to pay him that."
Right. And just going to that, if you look at right now, where on the list of highest paid annual contracts is Patrick Mahomes? He's tied for 9th at $45 million. So,
A steal.
Yep. Fascinating market. Professional athletes. It's an interesting market. I don't think it's like anywhere else. The last thing I think is interesting that I'll just bring up is that probably no other career does someone else have so much control over where you play, what you do, how you do it, that type of thing. So, you and I aren't out there signing 5-year deals to work somewhere or for a company or something like that. Most people, we're going to work every day, and if we don't like it, we can leave the next day. Other than having a do not compete or something like that, there's a lot more mobility. So, that's something you lose as a professional athlete, but obviously that can be quite lucrative on the other side of that. So,
yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It is. All right. Well, we'll see what Jordan gets. I'm sure it'll be coming out before training camp. I know everybody's said that's the goal. So we'll see what he gets and see if you'll be disappointed or not.
Yes.
All right. Till next time.